Can we go to the next slide? Okay, this would be interesting for you all. If you notice, data is turning out to be a new oil. Why is it so? If you notice in 60 seconds, what kind of stuff it's happening. If you look into YouTube, 4.3 million videos are being viewed in that 60 seconds across the globe. Okay, and what happens with those videos? When we have many data, we can build our prediction algorithms and we can improve the customer experience, right? So YouTube can use that to improve the experience basically. Okay, and then Twitter, around 4,81,000 of tweets are being actually sent across the globe in 60 seconds. Tinder, you know what does Tinder do? Okay, I don't have to get into that. Gmail, 187 million emails sent in this 60 seconds across the globe. Okay, and then Amazon, WhatsApp, you might have noticed that 38 million messages are sent across the globe. And you know what can happen with that, right? You might have already noticed that when we write any sentence to our friend, most of the times WhatsApp will give us the recommendation that for autofill, right? You might be writing this sentence basically. So we are actually a lot of different organizations are trying to improve their customer experience with the help of customizations and personalizations. Okay, and then that's how the customer will be really happy. In case of WhatsApp, you don't have to complete your sentence by yourself, right? And then Facebook, Google's, like around 3.7 million search queries are actually being done in 60 seconds. And you know that when in Google also, when you write the sentence, it will show you so many just suggestions. And then Netflix, you know what happens with Netflix. I've already given you an example. It shows you a lot many different recommendations that you might like this movie, you might like that movie based on your previous watched movies. Online shopping, you might have already seen that on Amazon. Let's say if you're searching for a mobile of OnePlus again and again, and maybe due to some constraint you're not buying it, but you like that mobile so much you are searching it again and again. And then in the future, whenever you open your Amazon app, it happens that the first thing you see would be OnePlus phone. So basically, the app is actually driving you, or it's indirectly forcing you that, Baba, you might have to buy this phone. So what happens? Like they are actually driving you in terms of buying that phone, and then they can actually increase the revenue out of it, right? Or sometimes I've even noticed that because sometimes I also look for mobiles on Amazon, let's say, and then what happens is I might have searched so many times on Amazon that when I open the cricket website, for looking at the cricket score, because we all know that most of the Indians are passionate about cricket as well. So when I open the cricket website for looking at the cricket score, what happens was the recommendation also pops up in that website also. So I generally feel like, what is it? Come on. Of course, machine learning and deep learning is a good technology, but then you're forcing a person to buy that product, right? In a way. So you can understand what's happening with respect to these technologies. Okay. And then lot many things can be done with respect to machine learning, deep learning. When you get into this field, you will understand it in a better way. Can we go into the next slide, please, Venkatesh? Now, what is ML and AI? So basically, artificial intelligence is very simple to understand. Any machine which can mimic, or maybe the technique by which machine can mimic a human behavior, that's artificial intelligence. Some technology which enables maybe a machine to mimic us, that's artificial intelligence. Okay, and then machine learning. What is machine learning? So you will understand that machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence in a way. Okay, so machine learning is basically any statistical method which actually make sure that the model or any machine is improving with experience. Okay. Okay. If I want to understand this, I explain this in a better way. Let's say that I don't know if I would be taking a reasonable example. Let's say that because, okay, let's talk about lathe machine. You all know lathe machine, right? So when we talk about lathe machines, we know that sometimes it could be a chance that the machine is about to get distorted or maybe the failure, and we are predicting the machine failures. So now we know that with respect to the data, historical data, now let's say we know that the machine gonna fail here, and if the machine fails, we know that to some extent our revenue will get also impacted, right, if our machines are getting failed. But if we could predict in advance with the help of historical data, if the machine is about to get failed, let's say next week, and we can actually have a backup, maybe in the inventory, by keeping an additional lathe machine over there. By that, the revenue will not get impacted, the production will not get impacted, right? And then deep learning is just it's very similar to machine learning, but it's just that it uses multi-layer neural network. I'll not get into what is multi-layer at this point of time. Maybe in the coming slide I'll let you know what exactly I meant by multi-layer neural network. But you can just treat that deep learning is advanced machine learning technologies. Okay. Can we get into the next slide, Venkatesh? Yes. So I just wanted to explain the left side graph and right side graph also here. So when I talk about, you must be thinking, when we already have machine learning in place, why do we need deep learning, right? So in such scenarios, what happens is, if you notice this right hand side graph, as you keep increasing the amount of data in x-axis, your performance also increases. Like your basically your x-axis is amount of data and y-axis is performance. So basically, if you notice, for traditional machine learning algorithm, to some extent the performance increases when the amount of data increases, if you look into the traditional machine learning plot. But after a certain period of time, even though if you keep increasing your data, the performance does not increase, it becomes stagnant. And that's where deep learning comes into picture. Okay. So if you notice, the advanced deep learning, which is deep neural networks, if you keep increasing the data, the performance of the model keep increasing. Of course, at some point of time, this will also become stagnant, but not as early stagnant as we see in traditional machine learning. Okay. And this medium neural network, shallow neural network, don't worry about it. It's just a type of deep learning. It's just that when you have a machine learning in general, you will be having lot many inputs and you predict the outputs basically, right? Based on some mathematical equation at the back end, or maybe statistical methods, which you will be seeing now in the coming slides. But when you have deep learning, what I mean by deep learning is, you will be having inputs. Directly from the inputs, you will not be predicting the outputs. What you're going to do, you will be predicting some intermediate stuff. Okay, just imagine that as some stuff. Okay, you'll be predicting some intermediate stuff. Using that intermediate stuff, you will be predicting the outputs. Okay, so for the same example, let's say if I know the person's age, height, weight, and lot many features, those are as an inputs, and my output is whether the person is having a cancer or not. Now, if I directly use these inputs and predict the output whether the person is having cancer or not, maybe that can be considered as machine learning algorithms. But if you try to predict something as an intermediate output here, and then based on these intermediate outputs, you are actually predicting the output. That is, let's say you can call that as a shallow neural network. Okay. Now from the inputs, you come up with an intermediate output 1, and from intermediate output 1, you'll be predicting intermediate output 2. From intermediate output 2, let's say you're predicting the main output, whether the person is having a cancer or not. In that case, it is basically a medium neural network. Okay. Now, in terms of deep learning, you will be having many intermediate outputs. Very simple. Okay. And then what are the leading softwares? If you notice here, this is a previous graph which I'm trying to show you from 17, 18, and 19 here. If you notice in the left side now, if Python is the leading software when it comes to data science and machine learning. What do I mean by that? Lot many people across the globe are actually using Python to solve the problem of machine learning or to do the predictions with respect to machine learning. Okay, of course there is, you can use Javas, a lot many things, but Python is clearly a winner. Okay, and that's the reason I was emphasizing so much on Python and R, because if you learn Python, there are good amount of chances for you to get a job. Okay, because Python is clearly a winner. Okay, and of course R, when it comes to R, if you want to become a statistician, R is a very good language to become a statistician. And lot many different organizations in the foreign, basically not in India, I would say in India there are very less countries who are using R, very less companies which are using R, but in foreign, lot many companies are actually using R still. Okay, now with respect to companies, yeah, maybe we can move into the next slide. Yeah, with respect to companies, there are many companies, okay, believe me, there are many companies at this point of time which are using machine learning techniques and AI or deep learning techniques, but I've written some of them. And if you notice, all the organizations which I've named here are more or less towards mechanical and automobile. It's because when I was making the presentation, all the mechanical companies was coming into my mind. So I'm sorry for that. But then, yes, that's how I have written all many organizations here. Dassault Systems, BMW, Bosch, Audi, and you might have already heard this company names in your past, right? These are the very famous organizations. So previously, most of the organizations 10 years back, they might be using all the traditional mechanical stuff to solve their problems. But now, lot many problems of identifying the hot zone or hot spot in the vehicle can be done using machine learning itself. Okay, and then you might have already heard in the recent times about autonomous driving, right? That's a very famous example if I want to talk about machine learning and deep learning and how AI is coming into picture. So you can understand why we see that why this AI and machine learning is becoming so popular. Okay. Once again, these examples which I've taken are only with respect to mechanical, and sorry for that, but believe me, now almost more than 80% of the organizations are implementing data science and machine learning to improve the experience of their customers or to improve their revenue or to reduce the expenses. In a way, they will be improving their profits. Okay. So believe me, most of the organizations are using it. Okay. And let me quickly take a 5 minutes break to answer the questions because I see that there are a lot many questions. If I can understand the pitch of the audience, then it will be very easy for me how to proceed further. Okay. Now, I have taken the Sanjana's question, and then Mohit was asking, sir, does your college help you to get an opportunity? No, Mohit, for me, no, because I've graduated long time back, right? So for me, it was not a case. I have joined the organization as a CFD engineer. If you know CFD, what is CFD? CFD is computational fluid dynamics, which is a stream of mechanical engineering. I'll not get into that, but then yes, I have joined it as a CFD engineer, but then I have moved into data science machine learning because I had a lot of data and I wanted to improve. I wanted to do some pilot project at that point of time in the organization, and I was able to convince my management at that point of time. Oh yes, Priyanka, if you have only 1 year of experience, of course, it will be right time for you to move into data science. I don't know if we have the recorded class after this. Lenovo, I'm not really sure, but then I think Venkatesh can tell you the answer later on about this if we have the recorded class or recorded session can be shared with you or not.
1 second, Abhijit, if you don't mind. Guys, the
Yeah, sure.
session is being recorded and it will be posting it on our official YouTube channel. Also, like people asking about the Google Form attendance sheet, it will be shared only at the end of the session. Okay, thank you very much.
Awesome. So that would answer the question with respect to non-technical stuff. Great. And then what was the next question? Can we do the Q&A? Of course, we can do that after this session. Again, Q&A, but I have just taken a break because my vocals were paining. Okay. It happens when I talk a lot many times or for so much time, my vocal pains. Yes. And then I love coding and math, then which part will I choose? Of course, you have to, if you love coding and math, then you have to think of becoming a statistician or maybe mathematician. But if you love both coding and math, then you can get into software engineering or maybe you can get into data science as well. Okay. But then being a data scientist, I would suggest data science. Okay. But it's up to you. You can either go into data science or software engineering. One more question was, which is the best for electrical engineering, data science? Or I would say for all the fields, for example, mechanical, electrical, and civil, I would always think that data science is a better field in comparison to software engineering. Not because I'm just taking my example and my friend's example, what I've seen in the past. I've seen that most of the mechanical and electrical and civil engineers are generally love to do lot many mathematical stuff and lot of practical stuff rather than doing the coding, right? And when you get into data science, you will be having coding for sure, but that's not an advanced coding basically. But if you want to become a software engineer, you need to know advanced coding for sure. And then the other question was, this is a 2-hour session, right? I think so, yes. I have prepared my slides and I've incorporated the stories, assuming that this is a 2-hour session. Okay. And then thank you, Marin, for saying that. Yes, thank you so much, Marin. And thank you, Abbas, Yashwati. Okay, and then there was a question from Mohit. Amazon uses cookies to track our activity so that it can suggest us. Yes, of course it does that, but then let me not get into cookies. Harish, your answer was already given by Venkatesh. When you will get the certificate. Issue, I'll try to be a little faster, but believe me that this session is meant for 2 hours. So of course I'll be completing in 2 hours, but I'm not really sure if I can complete that in 90 minutes because I've prepared the content in a way that it goes for 2 hours. And then please, Venkatesh, let people are waiting in waiting room, I believe. So please let them in. I've already answered. Okay, Anushka, I'm currently doing BS 4 year in data science engineering in ISCR Bhopal. Should I do masters or go into a company? Just I'm getting data science role in some MNC. If you're scared that you might not get a good opportunity after doing masters, then you can get into data science. But if I'm not sure if your masters is also into data science. If your masters is also into data science, then for sure you can pursue masters, and then you will get a good opportunity after doing masters as well, because you'll be learning more about data science, right? I think what is the data I've already explained in the previous graph. Yeah, most of them are car manufacturing company, and I've already apologized for that, Ashutosh. What type of projects in field of and how to apply? Of course, I've already given so many applications with respect to business when it comes to AI and ML recommendation system, Netflix, okay, recommendation system in Flipkart and Amazon, image processing and computer vision when it comes to photo tagging in Facebook, text classification when it comes to whether the email should get into inbox or spam, right? And then if someone is coming from non-technical background, I'm assuming that this question from Steffi Raj was, if the person is coming not having a knowledge of both math and coding, then it takes some time, maybe around a year. to have a complete hands-on on data science and then crack an interview. Otherwise, it's slightly difficult. Aditi, these companies are using R. Okay, the good thing in our country is companies most of the time do not restrict us from using either R or Python. It's up to us whether we can, if we want to use R or Python. Companies never restrict us. Okay, but you should be able to solve the problem. And then I'm studying after BSc. Yes, you can, Mayur. And okay, Priyanshu, sir, I'm doing engineering from artificial intelligence and data science. Is it better option for me getting good job? Yes, of course. What are the basic office requirements? Okay, you have to be a very good infrastructure with respect to cloud, because you'll be working on the data, which could be of gigabytes or maybe terabytes or megabytes. Okay, so you have to have a very good cloud infrastructure with you so that you can solve the problems. And then, okay, so I've taken the questions till Viraj. From Ishan, maybe I will wait for now and I'll take the questions at the end. Yeah, I've taken this lathe machine review again. If you notice, let's say that we are some of the like some organization, whoever maybe, let's say they are actually manufacturing this lathe machine, and they want to understand whether this machine is performing well or not, or maybe it's how are the reviews about this lathe machine which they have manufactured. So then they will ask their clients or customers or maybe different universities where they have sold this lathe machine, and ask them to send their reviews. And let's say that their reviews are in text format. Now I've already told you, they just need to identify whether the reviews are positive, negative, or neutral. And if it is negative, if the most of the reviews are negative, then they have to understand why those reviews are negative, what kind of functionality in that lathe machine which people are not liking, or what kind of functionality which is missing in that lathe machine because of which the reviews are negative. So they will analyze this data, and then they can actually improve the lathe machines. In turn, they can actually make sure that their clients are happy, and in turn, they can improve the profits. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, I've given this example because you should be knowing that every time the data will not be in structured format. Structured format in the sense, in the previous example which I've shown, not this lathe machine. I was telling about cancer, non-cancer, right? And let's say if your all data is in mathematics or numerical format, then that's a structured data. But every time the data will not be in structured format, right? It will be both in structure and unstructured format. What do I mean by unstructured format? Your data can be in images form or maybe in text form, right? And then you have to analyze those data basically. For images, you know that images are actually formed of pixels. So in a way, images can actually be discretized into mathematical numbers or maybe the tensors in a way. Similarly, the text, we have some kind of text preprocessing in place by which we can convert the text also into vectors or tensors. And then we'll be doing those predictions. Similarly, for this example, if we have so many images, million of images, and we want to classify the images of car or bicycle, someone does not have to sit manually and then classify them. Our model can do that. If we build our model based on the historical images of cars and bicycle, if we can build a model, good model which can actually classify the images of cars and bicycle, then any new incoming image can be directly classified with that model itself. Someone does, like, no labor cost will be involved in that way, in that case, right? If we have already created a model. Okay, next slide maybe. We have already talked about one text classification. about lathe machine review. Similarly, I've already talked about spam, non-spam, right? When you have this text, let's say if I have this text, incoming email with, hey, you have won a lottery of 1 crore. Of course, that's bullshit, right? We know that that doesn't make sense. It's very rare that to be so lucky. So in that case, uh, uh, the email should get into spam box, right? Rather than getting that into our inbox. Because if that email comes into our inbox, we have to manually move that email to spam. And that's what we used to do 10 years back. But now, if you notice, most of the spam emails are actually filtered as spam automatically, right? If you ever get a chance, maybe you can get into a spam inbox and you will notice that most of the emails are getting as spam. Now, again, to relate this with an example of cancer and non-cancer, uh, if you have remember the example of cancer, if your model is predicting as cancer, okay, and the person, whether the actual values are, let's say the person is having a cancer or not a cancer, but it will be on the safer side, right? At least in terms of data science analysis. Similarly here, if your email, let's say if your email, even though if your email is spam, and if it is predicted as inbox, non-spam basically, then we are happy with it. Like on a safer side, what we can do in the worst case is we can pull that spam email and we can move that to spam box from inbox, right? But imagine if a non-spam email, the one which is supposed to get in your inbox and has actually predicted as spam and moved into spam box by itself automatically. In that case, because I know that most of the people in current era do not even look into their spam box, that's something which is slightly a tricky position, right? Because we generally do not look into a spam box, and there might be a very important email which might have predicted as spam. Okay, so again, I'm just trying to relate this example with cancer, non-cancer. If everything is getting predicted as inbox, of course, the customer experience will not be good, but we will not be at least missing any important email. But if everything is getting classified as spam, you know that we might actually miss our important email. So our model has to be, when we are talking about the model should be robust when it tries to predict the spam class rather than predicting the inbox class. You understand my point, right? Because if it is predicting, if it is predicting it as inbox, then it's okay. Maybe 1 or 2 emails which you're getting in your spam box, you can move them into spam. But if your important email is getting predicted as spam, then you might not look into that. You might overlook that email, right? So that's a problem. Okay, and let's get into the next slide. Now let's get into the technical aspects. I hope you people will love this. Now we are left with only very less slides. Please bear with me. Okay, so machine learning are actually divided into 3: supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. Okay, so if you notice this, supervised learning is something which is train me. It is calling it as train me when you do prediction and classification algorithms. In mathematical terms, when your data has labels, okay, when your inputs has output, when your inputs have output, that's basically a supervised learning. That's where you can implement supervised machine learning algorithms such as linear regression, logistic regression, other models as well. But what is supervised learning in terms of, if I want to explain in layman terms, let's say if you place a mango in front of a small kid who is an infant, okay, will that kid be able to understand whether this fruit is mango? In first place, whether that kid would be able to understand if it is a fruit? No, right? In that case, what I'm trying to explain is we have to train the kids, right? We have to supervise them. So that's basically a supervised learning. When it comes to, let's say in our case, now we are grown up. Okay, now let's say if you place look into the second image. let's say if we have the images, or let's say we have fruits and vegetables in front of us, lot many different vegetables and fruits, or maybe and now let's say if you want to separate fruits and vegetables, basically we want to cluster them separately. So in that case, because I'm a grown-up person now, I know what are fruits and what are vegetables, right? So I'm self-sufficient to learn. That's basically unsupervised learning. So that basically when your inputs does not have outputs, and based on the inputs itself, you are trying to identify the patterns. Okay. And the model will also try to cluster them into vegetables and fruits. If we give this example with some inputs, input could be like anything, color, whether the fruit is sweet, or lot many different criterias based on which we can generate the inputs. And then based on only the inputs, the model will actually find the patterns, and then it will cluster them maybe. Okay. And then reinforcement learning. So basically reinforcement learning is more trickier than supervised learning and unsupervised learning, because it's basically learning from your mistakes. And that's what we used to do in mathematics, right? Hit and trial method. When you have a cubic equation, the first factor needs to be identified with the help of trial and error, and then your equation turn out to be a quadratic, and then you will factorize it to identify the other two factors or other two solutions, right? But anyways, not getting into the math. So for layman terms, let's say if you're stuck in an island and you're hungry, you'll be searching for a fruit, right? And let's say you went into one corner of the island and you found that, oh no, you cannot find fruit over there. That's basically a danger zone. Okay. You might not, so that's not a right position, or that's not a right corner to identify fruits. So you have learned that. And from your mistakes, you will not be going into that corner of that island in search of fruits, right? Now you have learned that. So basically learning from the mistakes, that's basically reinforcement learning. I hope I'm able to convey the examples with a very simple examples. What are these different learnings in machine learning? And every different type of machine learning will have different algorithms to solve the real life problems. Okay. Let's get into the next slide.